The day my son-in-law looked me in the eyes, took my house keys, and said, "You're not welcome here anymore," I felt something inside me shatter. What hurt even more was seeing my own daughter standing beside him in complete silence. She couldn't even look at me. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply turned around and walked away. But before the sun went down, I made one phone call that changed everything. Stay with me, because by the next morning, the people who thought they had won were packing their bags. And if you enjoy emotional family stories with unforgettable endings, subscribe to Behind Dad. There are many more stories waiting for you. Before we continue, I want to mention that the pictures and scenes you see throughout this video are creative visual illustrations designed to help you imagine this fictional story more clearly. My name is Richard. I'm 68 years old, and for most of my life, I believed family would always be there when everything else faded away. After my wife passed, my daughter Olivia became my entire world. I spent years helping her through college, paying bills when she struggled, and even welcoming her and her husband, Kevin, into my home when they said they needed a fresh start. I never imagined the kindness I gave so freely would one day be used against me. At first, everything felt normal. They promised it would only be for a few months while they saved enough money for a place of their own. I believed them because they're family. Slowly, little things began changing. Kevin started making decisions around the house without asking me. Furniture was moved. My routines disappeared. Even my favorite chair somehow became their chair. I ignored the warning signs because I kept telling myself that peace inside the family mattered more than winning small arguments. Looking back now, I realize silence can sometimes be the biggest mistake a person makes. A few weeks later, I came home after visiting an old friend. As I walked toward the front door, I noticed my key wouldn't fit. At first, I thought the lock was broken. Then the door opened just enough for Kevin to step outside. He held my old key in his hand, smiled without a trace of respect, and said, "I changed the locks this morning. This is our home now. You're not coming back in." I honestly thought he was joking. Then he closed the door halfway and repeated it. "Find somewhere else to stay." I looked past him, hoping Olivia would speak up. She was standing in the hallway, only a few feet away. Our eyes met for a second, but she looked down at the floor and said nothing. That silence hurt more than Kevin's words. My own daughter had watched the man she married throw her father out of his own home, and she didn't stop him. I felt my chest tighten. Years of memories flashed through my mind. Every birthday, every Christmas, every sacrifice suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else's life. I could have argued. I could have called the neighbors over or made a scene right there on the porch. Instead, I quietly held out my hand. Kevin dropped my old key into it with a grin, believing he had won. I nodded once, turned around, and walked back to my car. As I sat behind the wheel, my hands were shaking, not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't believe my family had come to this. I reached for my phone, scrolled to one number I had hoped I would never need, and pressed call. The calm voice on the other end answered, "Good afternoon, Mr. Collins. How can I help you today?" The voice belonged to my attorney, Daniel Brooks. He had handled my legal affairs for years and knew every detail about my home. I calmly explained what had happened. He didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, there was a long pause before he quietly said, "Richard, stay where you are. Don't argue with anyone. I'll take care of the rest." His confidence gave me a little hope, but my heart still felt heavy. I never wanted my daughter to be caught in the middle of something like this. I only wanted my home back. Less than an hour later, Daniel arrived with 2 sheriff's deputies. I followed behind, wondering how my life had changed so much in a single afternoon. Kevin opened the front door with the same confidence he had shown earlier, but the moment he saw the deputies, his smile disappeared. Daniel handed him several legal documents and calmly explained that I was the sole legal owner of the property. Changing the locks without my permission and refusing me access to my own home had serious legal consequences. Olivia stood frozen in the hallway. Tears filled her eyes as she realized Kevin had never bothered to understand whose name was actually on the deed. She looked at me and whispered, "Dad, I thought we were going to work everything out." I wanted to believe her, but trust had already been damaged. The deputies politely informed Kevin that he and Olivia would need to leave the property. The confidence he had shown just hours earlier was gone. As they quietly walked upstairs to pack their belongings, I realized this was no longer about a house. It was about whether my family could ever recover from the choices they had made. The next morning, I watched Kevin and Olivia carry the last of their boxes to the moving truck. Nobody argued. Nobody blamed anyone else. The only sound was the closing of car doors and the quiet breeze moving through the trees. Before leaving, Kevin walked over to me with his head down and said, "I thought I was protecting my family, but I let my pride control me. I'm sorry." It wasn't easy to hear those words after everything that had happened, but I could see he finally understood the damage he had caused. Olivia stayed behind after Kevin reached the truck. Tears rolled down her face as she hugged me tighter than she had in years. "Dad," she whispered, "I should have spoken up the moment he took your keys. I was afraid of creating a fight, but my silence created something much worse." I held her for a long moment because, despite everything, she was still my daughter. I told her forgiveness is possible, but trust must be earned back one choice at a time. That conversation hurt, yet it was the most honest one we'd had since her mother passed away. Before we finish, I want to mention that every picture and scene you've seen in this video is a creative visual illustration created to help bring this fictional story to life and make every emotional moment easier to imagine. That experience taught me a lesson I'll carry forever. Never stay silent when someone crosses a line, especially inside your own family. Kindness should never be mistaken for weakness, and respect should never depend on convenience. If this story touched your heart, let me know in the comments what you would have done in my place. Share this video with someone who believes family should always be built on love and respect. And don't forget to subscribe to Behind Dad for more emotional stories with unforgettable endings. Remember, the strongest families aren't the ones that never face conflict. They're the ones that choose respect before it's too late.